Guys, it's Kelly and I am back with another video, this time for Create a Smile. Today we're going to be using This Must Be Love and Color Your Heart Out. So the online card classes, watercolor intermediate class has been out there, so there's been a ton of watercolor projects out there, and I just got on board. I am signed up for the class, but I haven't really had any time to play around with it, but I bought the new paints, and then I wanted to play with them. Like, when you get a new toy, you just want to play with it. So I picked a super light gray ink. This is Fairy Dust by W+9, and I'm taking the large heart border that's in the Color Your Heart Out set, and I am stamping that onto some watercolor paper. I'm trying to make sure that it's not perfect. Like, I don't want the same pattern to be lined up time and time again. So I'm moving it from the left to the right, varying how far from the left or the right until the whole pattern was, or the whole piece of paper was covered in pattern. And then I'm just going to mix up, I'm using Winsor & Newton, the Cotman collection tube paints, watercolor tube paints. This is the first time that I've used them. I have no idea what I'm doing. Let's just put that out there. Okay, I don't want to mislead anybody into thinking that I know what's going on. I don't. But I wanted to kind of play around with them, and I figured a background would be a really good way to do that. So I'm just mixing up some colors, trying to find something that I'm going to be happy with. And I have noticed that because I'm used to watercoloring with mediums that are not traditional watercolor, like Distress inks or Zig color pens, traditional watercolors are not nearly as bright. They're much more muted, which is fine. That's pretty. It's just not what I'm used to. So I got the purple down, and now I'm going to go ahead and add some teal, aqua, and I really liked the way the two of them were blending together since they were both still wet. That pink at the bottom, magenta, whatever you want to call it, dried pretty quickly on me. So I'm just going to go back in and kind of add another layer so that everything's wet and they do blend together. Watercolors are meant to be layered, so this is not like a big deal. I just wanted it to be a little more fluid. And then for the last color, I am using the two blues. What is it? Cerulean and ultramarine. And I just mixed a little bit of those together to get like a medium blue. I felt like the cerulean on its own was a bit too bright with the other colors that I had going on. And then while this is still just a little bit damp, I took a larger brush, I think it's like a 1-inch flat brush, and just dropped a little bit of water on there to create some blooms and texture in the background. And then I let it all dry. From there, I went ahead and removed it from my board and I cut it down. I think that this would be really pretty, if you did something a little less, I guess, or a little more fluid, where maybe you just stamp the heart straight onto your background and then painted over them and the edges were whatever they were. But I like things that are clean lines, so I trim mine down. I originally started doing my Copic coloring with the idea of making the hearts like shadowed on the inside, but I didn't like it. So you saw when I first brought it on screen that it already had some color on it. I didn't see the purpose in showing you that because that's not what I ended up doing. I ended up just picking a side of the heart to shade from, and then that's what I went with. I wanted them to stand out a little bit more than they were, and I kind of viewed the watercolor background as exactly that, a background. And I wanted these to be a bit more in the forefront. So, plus, I can't not use my Copic markers. Seriously, you ever get just, I mean, with everything in life, I guess we get stuck in ruts, and I am with a white outline and adding a shadow and using my Copics. That's where I'm at. That's where I'm living right now. So you guys are, if it's not your thing, come back and see me in a few months. Maybe it'll change. So wherever there was pink, I wanted the hearts to be pink. So there are a couple that are color blended. And it's not, Copics are translucent, transparent, however you want to look at it. They work together. Whatever color you put on top is going to be the more dominant color. So you can blend them together even though they're not the same color, as long as you're paying attention to what the saturation is. Like, you're not going to be able to blend an 01 with an 09. But if you have, you know, an RV04 and a B04, even though they're different color families, you can probably get them to blend because they're the same saturation. So anyway, I also tried to bring different hearts forward, or set other ones in the back. So here I basically pulled all of the big hearts forward. I didn't pay too much attention to the smaller ones on the bottom. But once I move up, then, you know, I'll pick a few of those to pop out as well. I also want to mention, basically I matched all of my midtones to whatever my background was. So whatever my midtone was, it pretty much matched the watercolor spot on. So I had a, you know, a highlight that would fill in, but then, and a darker shade, which would give it that contrast, but that medium shade on all of them was almost spot on to what I had put in the background. And even this, like the, you know, blending teal and purple together, like you might not think that it works, but they're both blue based, so they do. Like, they're not going to make like a hideous brown color or something. You're not going to end up with like puce on your card. You'll be all right. So I went through and did that coloring, and then the same thing for the blues. I did trim this panel down quite a bit, so there is not as much pink and blue on the card as you saw me originally paint. That was a lot of what kind of got the axe there. But I think it's enough that there's some good variation, so I'm totally okay with it. Once I was done adding the shading to the hearts, I told you I'm in this rut. I don't want to call it a rut because it sounds like it's so bad. I'm in the, I don't have another word, guys. I'm just like obsessed with adding shadows to things, and I can't stop myself. I wish I probably wouldn't have done it to this one. I don't think that it really enhanced the card too much, but what's done is done. So I picked a C5 and a C3, and I just started adding some shadows to those hearts to kind of pick them up from the background. And I did the C5 over the entire panel, and then I blended it out with the C3. I'm adding some clear Winkostella just to some random hearts, just so that there's some shimmer in the background. There wasn't like any rhyme or reason to it. I just picked a couple. Now this is my Misty. I'm using the W+9 Pure Color Black ink to stamp in. It's my favorite ink for sentiments. But this L has this really long, beautiful script loop, but it's too long for my panel. So after I inked it up, I just wiped that off, and I didn't have my baby wipe ready, so it didn't stamp really well. That was my fault. So the beautiful thing about the Misty is you can stamp a second time in the exact same spot. So I just stamped it again. I also messed around quite a bit with how to add the second part of the sentiment. I did white heat embossing on black. I did black stamping on white. I tried a couple of different things. And then finally I was just like, just stamp it on the panel, Kelly. Like, don't overthink this. Just stamp it. So I'm adding some clear sequins from Pretty Pink Posh. And then I did, because it is a relatively simple card, I wanted to give it a little more oomph. So I am popping it up on some craft foam. This is cut just slightly smaller than my watercolor panel. I'm going to add that on, and then add that to a white card base. Here I was checking to see that my card was in the right position, and I couldn't like catch the corner. I know, it was just giving me a hard time. Just gave me a hard time the whole time, guys. So once that was down, I thought I was done. No, because I have to add this white outline. Like, I have a problem. There should probably be like some sort of anonymous group for me to go to, like, to break your craft habits. But I just think it looks so pretty when it's against a background, and I felt like it needed something to bring in that white and to make that love pop up a little more off the card. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I will catch you with the next video. Bye.